You're listening to iCannabisRadio.com.
All right, we're back with In the Lab with Genifer. Unfortunately, I have some bad news, but Jill can no longer co-host my show, so I'm pretty sad about that. But I have another wonderful scientist that's actually going to co-host with me, and that's Tamar. Hi, Tamar.
Hello.
So Tamar is going to be with me from now on. We won't be on next week because it is a holiday, but we'll start June fresh, and we're going to dig deeper into science for the summer. But we have some very special guests today, not only Tamar, but she actually was able to bring Darwin with her, which is the other Dixie scientist. Hi, Darwin.
Hi, Jen. Very nice being here.
All right. I'm glad to have you guys. We'll geek out on some science. And then to my right, we have a very special guest, Lex, and he is writing a book about cannabis, and I'll let him tell you more about that, but he's traveling all over and getting the scoop on all kinds of things with cannabis. He's also a scientist, has a degree in biochemistry, but I will let him talk more about what he's doing and everything like that. So I think we will start out with you, Lex.
Hi.
Hi. Just talk normal, like we're just shooting it. So tell us about yourself and how you came about and your history and all of that stuff.
Well, the main thing I'm working on is this graphic novel, and it's kind of a social history of cannabis. I'm calling people the cannabinoids. So it's a lot of going around the country and interviewing people from all different aspects, whether it's crust punks who are doing the growing or doing the trimming, or Ed Rosenthal doing the growing, or Alan St. Pierre fighting for legalization, or Rick Doblin fighting for PTSD studies for with cannabis. So it's been a really fascinating way to look at a lot of parts of the history and story of this plant. It's been a really fun process. Cannabis people are easy to deal with.
That's very exciting. So speaking of PTSD, it is very exciting. The DEA actually gave a doctor named Sue, and I'm looking up her last name.
Dr. Sue Sisley.
Sue Sisley, yes. And I actually met her in Arizona. She's fantastic at the University of Arizona. And then their government, the nice Arizona government, put the kibosh on that. But now I heard it's back on. Are you going to talk to Sue too? Because she's specifically doing PTSD, correct?
Sue's going to be one of my best interviews. I actually want to go down and visit her because she is this vivacious woman filled with life, and she's very passionate about using cannabis for PTSD studies. The problem is that even though the study has been approved by her university and the DEA and the FDA, only NIDA has access to cannabis that can be used in human trials in this country. And they said no. They've been blocking this research for 10 years. There's been open PTSD studies for our veterans coming home.
10 years? Oh, my God. I didn't even know that.
Yeah, it's been open and ready for quite a long time. But NIDA will not hand over the cannabis because they said, and rightfully so, our mandate says we're only looking for drug harm. That's how Joe Biden wrote it. And so they're not allowed to look for help. They can't, and they're the only source of weed because of the weird mishmash of treaties that has us in this position.
Mississippi.
University
right?
of Mississippi
El
Pot
Soli.
Farm.
Yep.
And so Rick Doblin and MAPS has been fighting to get Lyle Craker of Massachusetts the right to grow, because he actually would grow good weed. He's an excellent agronomist, and the weed coming out of University of Mississippi is, shitty 70s swag at best. Seeds and stems.
And you met her. Did you meet her?
Yeah, I actually spoke with her
Oh.
down in Arizona. I gave a conference talk to naturopathic doctors from Arizona.
Fantastic.
And she was actually another speaker. So she was talking to me about her personal experience and how she's been trying to get this through for almost 2 years. So it's great news that she's finally...
She's fantastic.
Yes, she's, as you said, she's very vivacious, very...
Passionate.
Yes.
Smart. like super awesome. And interesting enough, PTSD does not qualify for a medical red card in Colorado, which is pathetic. Makes me sick to my stomach. So thank God it'll be legal and anyone over 21 can enjoy it after, right now, actually, they just can't buy or sell. So anyway, okay, sorry. So what were you doing before how do you just go, oh, I think I'm going to do a book? Like, how does that happen?
Well, I've been a drug writer and studying people's relationship with sexuality for a couple of years now and publishing articles in New York. And the chance to turn this into a book kind of happened at Burning Man. I met dispensary owner, Andre Special of CBCB, and she's one of those women who just very medically focused. When someone comes in and talks about their symptoms, she's the kind of person who says, well, then you should be taking this strain that's high CBD, vaping it maybe once in the morning, a little bit less in the evening. The kind of person who just give you exactly what you need for your medical benefits. And on the way down to just chat with her, I got picked up by a bunch of crust punks in Humboldt County.
What is
Those
that?
are the kids on the street that with the long stringy hair who ride trains and usually have some dogs with them, like, the outcast.
I've never even heard that term.
Yeah, the kids sitting around spanging for change is the term.
Spanging.
Yeah, and a lot of them make their money on trimming and then spend the rest of the year following around Further, one of the other jam rock bands.
Okay, yeah.
So, but they're also a great source. These are some of the people, the cannabinoids, and they spend all their time trimming weed, which is during the harvest, which is a shitty, hard job. And so that's what I got the inside scoop from them about.
Right.
That's weird.
And that's definitely a different view. I've never even heard those terms. That's so funny. Have you guys?
No.
Yeah. We really don't have those here. Like, since Colorado, we do. Well, I'm sure we have them, but it's not as prevalent as in California because we have regulation here and you have to have a badge. You can't just pick up trimmers or, like drywallers off the frickin' corner and go, hey, yeah. You have to actually have, you're supposed to have a badge. So I think that's why it's a little bit different here is just hopefully regulated a little bit more. But so what are you finding out? What have you learned that so far that you didn't, I don't know, the coolest thing you've learned, I guess?
I think the most controversial thing I learned is about the phenomenon of dabbing. It's really fairly unknown on the East Coast. Only Colorado and California are really concentrating this. But as I talk to a lot of people in the industry, I hear a lot of concerns. And I think they're very justified. Fred Gardner of O'Shaughnessy's, the main cannabinoids journal, said dabbing might be more akin to alcohol becoming liquor in the 1700s, where all of a sudden, very easily, you can get very high levels of this drug into your system. Is that going to be terrible? Probably not. It's still going to be better to get really high on dabs than it is to get drunk or to take almost any other drug to excess. Cannabis is still going to be safer. But cannabis does have small but definitive links to schizophrenia and memory loss. And if all of a sudden we're putting a ton more THC in the system, that's what concerns me. But there's no studies. We really don't have any idea. It's a new phenomenon. We can't get studies for anything. And so we're just guessing. My gut says that dabbing's not a great phenomenon and might cause a backlash against cannabis in the next couple of years.
And and we were kind of talking about that before we got here. And as everyone knows, I've never dabbed and I will not dab. I don't.
Sorry, when you say dab, are you specifically talking about butane-made extracts?
No, we're just talking about the whole phenomenon itself, the rig, the blowtorch, the crack pipe that it looks like. The whole experience is what we're talking about.
As science, I'd be very interested to hear your takes on dabbing and what you've seen, both socially and scientifically.
And I guess that's why we asked for clarification, because both Darwin and I and myself smoke only extract. So if you're talking about dabbing as in smoking a higher concentration of cannabinoids, we would technically dab,
and
but
we'd support that.
But we do not smoke butane extracts. We smoke only water hash and CO2 oil.
Mm-hmm. And some of our dust that we've been making, which is made out of food grade ethanol, that we're doing with a proprietary method that I came up with.
Is that moving towards becoming a product?
Yeah, we sell it now, but soon it's going to be have a big marketing push behind it and have a good launch. So it'll be released sometime soon here, maybe around 7-10. We're not quite sure.
Okay. Yeah. Wait, tell me about the product.
Well, it's the crystalline extract of cannabinoids. Very similar to some of the flake or other products you might have seen out there, but it's not made with butane. It's made with ethanol and just high vacuum extraction to turn it into dust.
Nice.
Well, for me, honestly, you know, being at the Cannabis Cup and stuff, to me, cannabis is recreational, is maybe passing around a joint or whatever. I just, it just is so different to me when you have a blowtorch and a rig and you know, you're doing so much. I mean, I've seen like at the Cannabis Cup, like people cracked out on it, and I don't know which ones they were doing. Probably most likely not CO2, but it wasn't good experience just watching these people pass out and throw up. And, you know, I know that there are responsible people that, you know, let you know that if you've never done it, here's what to expect. Don't hold it in, blah, blah, blah. But I just see it going more towards that. Now people don't even smoke flowers now. It's just, I don't know. I don't, like you said, we have a lot to learn about it.
I would be curious about the scientists' take on any of the oil creation concentrating either the molds or the pesticides that were used to make this plant. I would assume the molds would get killed, but I could see it taking all the pesticides from the plant, just like it takes all the THC and puts in one nice smokable version.
Absolutely. I mean, just like with any other source material, you need it to be as clean and as pure as possible to use it for medicine. So I mean, at Dixie, we reject all trim that comes in that has any trace elements of mold. If it doesn't pass our screenings that we do through Can Labs.
So you test all your products at Can Labs?
Absolutely.
That's great.
Well, as much as they can test right now. So as everyone knows, we're adding on. Hopefully by October 1st, we'll be up and running with pesticides, microbials, and then further screenings with mold and mildew. But again, right now, if people aren't paying for tests, you can't offer them because you won't be in business. So like you were saying, on the East Coast, nobody knows what dabbing is. And actually, Chris here, we were having a chat last week, and he's known about dabbing for how many years? 4 or 5 years.
And you're here in Denver?
Yeah. So it's been going on a lot longer than, I mean, I think it just became prevalent, year and a half, 2 years ago, right?
As far as dabbing,
Because I didn't see it last year at the Cannabis Cup.
I mean, it was there, just maybe not.
Underground, I think, though, more.
Right.
But I think maybe this year it was very, very prevalent. But I think this new cultural norm definitely exploded here in Colorado and California. But I think this new culture of having it be out in the open is very much unique to Colorado.
Right. And when you're in California, Lex, there's dabbing there as well.
Well,
Yes.
it's supposedly illegal, though, right? Concentrates
Okay.
in California are supposedly illegal. So that's why I think it's not
Right.
right.
As opposed to
Right.
here,
As opposed to here where it's legal.
Because I'm curious if California is also doing, because for us, when we hear dabbing, because Darwin and I were hash heads or, extract smokers before it was called dabbing. So for us, it's synonymous to butane.
I see what you're saying.
And
So I'm
I'd say
curious.
I think that also has a huge deal with its explosion because butane is super cheap and easy to do,
Yeah.
and that's
In
why
ugly cans.
It's why it was so quick to explode because it was really easy to make and very cheap to source.
I'm a firm believer that the butane extraction will be going by the roadside. Once people learn about it and learn that there are additional dangers, and CO2 extractors will get smaller. They're all industrial size now, so no
Sure.
small guys can afford them. But soon enough, there'll be $5,000 desktop models that
Exactly.
people can do this. So what actually concerns me more, because my gut would tell me that the levels of butane aren't going to be that terrible compared to what you get generally from filling up your car and from lighting a bong.
Right.
And even the pesticides might not be as big, but that right now you can smoke what would have been a day's worth of smoke for a heavy stoner. You can now smoke in one dab hit.
Right.
That's an incredibly large amount of THC, and that's probably my main concern is that much more THC
Right.
in the human's body, and we don't know what that'll do.
Right, and so you're right, there aren't very many studies, but from what I've been able to research, because I was also curious about this, I went from not smoking at all to smoking good bud. I guess I've never experienced swag because I started smoking late. But smoking,
Lucky you.
yeah,
I'm sure I could get you some.
smoking the better quality bud, I guess. And then when I met Darwin, I gradually switched to smoking extract only. So at first, you're right, it was way too strong for me, uncomfortably so. It does take a while, but from the research that I've been able to see, cannabinoids are changing the language of tolerance and dependence, because you think, okay, cocaine, uncut, right, or pure quality, whatever illegal drug, it's probably worse to take the better quality because you're going to increase your dependence and your tolerance. Well, actually, conversely, with cannabinoids, the better quality cannabinoids or THC you get in your system, the less your receptors have to work. So your receptors will titrate dependent on the quality of cannabinoids. And this is brand new research as well. So what that tells me is, because I have an anecdotal experience, I guess, to kind of back up this scientific research I found. Because I can take, half a hit, one hit, and I'll be fine for a long time. Darwin's a different story. I'll let him explain his tolerance. But I'm able to really titrate, as you're saying, the amount. So instead of with bud having to smoke several bowls, I can take maybe one hit of water hash and then stop. And you were talking about schizophrenia and...
And we got to go on a break real quick, so hold that thought, and we'll be right back. Thanks. Blue Sage Microbes unveils the ultimate in superior soil, Ideal Soil, a 16-quart bag of the best growing soil ever engineered. Superior plant health and vitality is a direct result of the structure and chemistry of your soil. How good is your growing soil? Is your growing soil really balanced? How do you know? Well, Blue Sage Microbes has a newly designed growing soil that is the most advanced growing medium ever offered for cannabis cultivation. This is the only brand in the marketplace that provides growers with an ideal soil structure designed to work specifically with their cultivation systems. You will have your best grow results ever. Call now for a special introductory offer, 888-959-8551, or log on to bluesagemicrobes.com and experience a new level in growing. That's 888-959-8551.
Call Canisher at 1-800-420-5757 for all your insurance needs. Canisher understands the risks you face each day, and we are there to protect your business and your investment. Since 2010, Canisher has been serving the cannabis industry nationwide. Call Canisher at 1-800-420-5757 or visit us on the web at canisher.com to learn more about our insurance and risk management services. Proud member of the NCIA.
Green Faith Ministry is for spiritual guidance, MMJ information, and networking combined with compassionate care on the way to enlightenment with all Green Faith sacraments. Green Faith provides charity assistance, including medical and food throughout the year. Contact them at greenfaithministry.com.
All right. So we're back now. And Tamar was talking about basically that all cannabinoids aren't created equal. So let's talk. You were left off with schizophrenia.
Yes, I just wanted to address a point that Lex had made. I think you're saying some of your concerns were high dose of THC can induce schizophrenia or memory loss. Were those the two that you touched on?
Correct.
Okay. So with schizophrenia, it's been shown that if you're predisposed to schizophrenia, cannabis use can, I guess, shorten the length of time it takes for you to project the symptoms or manifest the symptoms. So if you're going to be schizophrenic, the typical time is 25, the age period when you do manifest symptoms. So if you are a smoker, it can be earlier, like 2021. That is one study. Another study is actually showing that with schizophrenia, because initially it was thought that THC can induce schizophrenia, but they're showing that a lack of your endocannabinoid anandamide. So if you have a low amount of anandamide, it can actually increase schizophrenic symptoms. So anandamide is similar to CBD. So the higher, as most people know when they smoke indicas, it's more of a mellow body high, not as energetic head high like a sativa.
I wouldn't say energetic, but okay. Everyone else says energetic. I'm like, really?
For
What?
sativas?
For anything that I smoke. You know me.
That's funny, though, because when we were hanging out, you did say that it was a bit, you were a bit more clear-headed when you were smoking our extract.
Oh my God, that pink stuff? Yeah, that was amazing.
That's the dust that Darwin was referencing.
Okay,
Yep.
that is awesome.
It comes in all sorts of, shades of colors from pink to gold.
Yep.
I'm all about pink. You know that. Anyway, sorry.
No worries. So as far as schizophrenia, I do agree with you, Lex. There need to be more studies. High use of THC, extracts with high amounts of THC. I still get paranoid sometimes when I have too much THC. So it can induce that kind of paranoia, anxiety. But one of the issues with extracts is, are you extracting and concentrating one of the cannabinoids or the other elements? Because the other constituents in the cannabis extract are also concentrated, and those are there to mitigate the negative effects of THC.
So which ones would be coming through? Would it be all the cannabinoids and the terpenes?
Yeah.
Well,
Flavonoids
depending.
yes,
Yeah.
it depends on the extraction process.
There are
Right.
fatty acids, ketones, and hundreds of other elements that come out in the extractions.
It's almost a whole plant extract.
Right.
Not,
Absolutely.
Exactly.
okay, it's just not the hard matter.
And so recently, 9 News was talking about pure THC oil, and they kept showing THC oil. But when it's concentrated from an organic plant, it's not pure THC oil. It's concentrated THC oil, yes, but the other elements are concentrated as well. It's just the lab testing. We don't have all the standards to show a breakdown of every single element that's in there. But we do know that potentially there's it's like 482, so less than 500 constituents of cannabis.
Isn't that incredible?
And then it'll take, subsequent post-refinement extractions to actually,
Single amount.
yeah.
Plus all the terpenes. Now, I know, I wish I knew much more about terpenes, and we don't test for those yet, but hopefully we'll. I mean, those have medicinal effects on you as well. So then what
Absolutely.
you're talking about, then those will become concentrated as well. And, because people come to the lab and they say, I just don't understand, I expected a high THC number or whatever, because they're so hooked on the number. I'm like, no. You need to look at the ratios of cannabinoids. But it could be from terpenes as well, right? Some are bronchial dilators. You're gonna get a larger absorption
Right.
and all those kind of things. So obviously the more we know, the more we can talk about maybe why things are working and why things aren't.
And just the type of extraction that you do will also depend on what type of constituents are extracted.
Right.
What you
Right.
pull. And as far as terpenoids, they're kind of secondary cousins of cannabinoids. So their structure is related. So most terpenoids, I would say, actually act as synergistic modulators of THC. So you're right, there could be one terpenoid that helps THC fit into the receptor more perfectly and you feel more high. But it's not necessarily that there's more THC in that strain.
Right.
It's that it has its secondary constituents are at that perfect ratio to
Exactly.
help THC absorption.
Right. Which is so cool now that I can actually talk to people about that, because I'm like, I don't know. Sorry, don't know what to tell you. But testing, it's one number out of one piece of pie out of so many other factors, Like I always say, you don't go to the liquor store and you buy Everclear. You go and buy what you like, and then you just have more of it or less of it. So what's so we talked about dabbing. What is something that you learned that you thought something else? So you thought you knew something, but now that you've visited and talked to people, that you realize that was a fallacy. Anything that comes to mind? Because I know there's a lot of fallacies about cannabis out there, like a ton of misinformation.
I mean, I gotta say, the thing that surprised me the most that I wasn't expecting was the amount of medical use. was
Exactly,
when I started reading through the history and then seeing how different cultures used it, and then looking at the studies that currently exist about the helpfulness of cannabis. It's as proved as the Earth going around the sun or man landing on the moon that this has very high medical potential. And my hard part about writing about this is I can't just list off all the things that weed works for, because it looks like a patent ad from the 1930s on snake oil, because it's such an incredible list of stuff. I have to break it down to 3 or 4 different experts, one for mental health, one for aging health, one for young children stuff, which is happening here in Colorado. Seems to be the epicenter of places where children with very debilitating epilepsy-type diseases are getting help from cannabis at a really young age. And I have 2 big points I want to make as I look at 2 families of stoners. And one is, I think the best American families that I have seen in traveling around the country are the families of stoners. They spend all of their time with their children, loving on them. And the other point is going to be about if you don't have the option on the table of giving cannabis to your children, I think that should be akin almost to harming your child. It's incredibly helpful for so many childhood diseases that not having this available is very wrong.
Well, and I think, though, unfortunately, people see the 80% and not the 20%. And the 20% is medicinal. The 80% is pop culture that people, the Bob Marley, the tie-dye and stuff like that. And the seizure disorders you're talking about, yes, people are moving from across the world to bring their children or their family members to Colorado because we really have the most advanced medicine here. And the child you're speaking of, which has her mom's been on here, will be on CNN. We're going to be on a documentary on CNN, and I really hope that opens a lot of doors to talk about some of this stuff. But sad but true, I got interviewed for Entrepreneur Magazine, and they're holding the story because of what it's about, which is really sad. I just found that out, and I was really bummed. And that's the facts of it. A lot of people still want the propaganda, and they don't want to really display what cannabis really is. They still want to, play on the 80 years of propaganda and crap, and it's really sad. So I hope. Most people respect CNN, and, regardless of your political views, when they show a little girl seizing and then cannabis, these videos of this little girl. And then also Chaz, literally Dr. Oh my God, I just spaced his name.
Alan Shackelford.
No. From CNN. Gupta. Sanjay Gupta was in my lab. But anyway, he caught... evidently it's on camera, and I hope it makes it on the show. But Chaz has, I don't know what the disease is. I thought it was part of muscular dystrophy, but maybe I'm wrong. But he has seizures in his midsection, very painful, and they caught it he took 2 hits of his vape, and it immediately stopped. I guess Sanjay Gupta was like his producer talked about it and everything. So I hope when people actually see that on the TV that they're going to think twice about it.
I actually got to sit down with Chaz just 2 nights ago. And if you want to learn more about his story, it's at iambillsmith.com. But it's really inspirational. He was taking 15 heavy-duty pharmaceutical pills 3 times a day. And they would eventually all stop working. Heavy-duty opiates, painkillers, anticonvulsants, all over the board. And everything would stop working after a month or 2, and he just couldn't go to school. He was an A-B student, but he was never in school, so he's really far behind until they discovered cannabis. And now, because things keep changing on his body, and that's just what his strange disease has, he has all these different tinctures and edibles and things, but all of a sudden, this kid is living a functioning life. Mm-hmm. He's going back to school. Unfortunately, to medicate, he has to go home. And so he misses an hour to go home and take 2 puffs off of his vape pen. He can't just step outside the school and take 2 quick hits. And
he can't even take edibles.
He can't go back.
He cannot take anything to the school.
Once he medicates, he can't go back to school.
They told him once, and there was a big public outcry. So now he can go back. Nice. But yeah, these kids, they can't get it from their school nurse. They can't get, it's a shame.
It's really sad too, because the aspect that people forget to think about is these are children. Developmental science, their bodies are developing, they can build tolerances to pharmaceuticals quickly. But endocannabinoids are needed for the development of children into adults. So when you supplement with phytocannabinoids, it is the most natural form of drug that a growing body can handle and incorporate. And as Lex and Jen are saying, the benefits are, they're visible. I hope that they.
I don't need a clinical study to see little Charlotte having 60 to 100 seizures in 24-hour period. And the first time she has cannabis, she doesn't have a seizure for a week.
Right.
But we need to take a break. We'll come right back. Yeah.
Cannapunch is a delicious and effective medical marijuana beverage proudly made right here in Colorado. Each bottle is freshly infused with 100% pure flower extract from the highest grade marijuana plants available today. Using proprietary extraction methods, every bottle of Cannapunch is consistently and reliably infused with an exact milligram dosage that you can count on to relieve your symptoms each and every time. Cannapunch is delicious. There's never any medicine-y taste. We use only 100% cannabis flowers. No trim or byproducts are ever used in Cannapunch. It does not require refrigeration and comes in convenient, resealable multi-dose bottles from 60 milligrams to 200 milligrams. We have drinks with dosage that works best for you. Cannapunch is available in a variety of delicious flavors like black cherry, watermelon, pineapple mango, and blue raspberry. And we now have strain-specific beverages available just for you. Cannapunch is delicious, convenient, consistent, and effective. Give it a try and experience the Cannapunch difference.
The chocolatiers at Incredibles are dedicated to crafting the finest chocolate from high-quality ingredients to ensure the greatest possible medicated edibles in the world. Consistency and quality are top priority. Lab testing on each and every batch. Rick and Josh have been making non-medicated chocolates for years for such retail outlets as Whole Foods and Vitamin Cottage. Today, we are focused on crafting our award-winning medicated Incredible chocolate bars. We are professional bakers, and we believe food should be made from scratch. We guarantee your satisfaction. Have an incredible day.
The National Cannabis Industry Association would like to thank its members who represent the leading professional businesses in America's emerging legal cannabis market. NCIA is the only organization that has unified legitimate cannabis business across the nation to fight for real reform in Washington, D.C. For more information or to make your business a member, visit us online at thecannabisindustry.org.
All right, and we're back, and I just got accosted. But my concern is that, and what I'm hearing and what I've heard parents standing up at the task force and at the Capitol and everything is that, now that it is legal here, that kids think it's not a big deal, and so that, they're trying it more and everything like that. So you tell me what you just said, Darwin.
Oh, well, I was just trying to comment that I don't think there has been a case in recent history, and if someone knows, please let me inform, that there hasn't been a society that's had prohibition on cannabis that's then legalized it to give us a reference as to what's going to happen when that legalization occurs.
What happens in Amsterdam right now? Holland? Do kids have a drug problem?
That's a great point, actually.
Right.
The drug use in Holland was very low, and just recently they sided with the U.S. government to
reschedule
to all of their drugs there, and they actually have had a rise in not only drug use but also crime. But it has been statistically shown that where societies have made it legalized drugs, period, use goes down.
And then what do you say, Lex?
Well, I mean,
you were giving a parallel.
And it's just it's so obvious how it's going to work. You go around Amsterdam. If it's not a dispensary, you're going to the Moroccan kids on the street, which is who supplies Europe. You see it everywhere, in Algeria. But on the flip side, I think our best model is Portugal, because Portugal decriminalized all drugs 10 years ago. No one really knows this. This is going to be my next book. But
I did know that, yeah.
It's nice that some people in the drug policy community know it, but more people need to know that somebody won the war on drugs by saying you can't go to jail for drugs. You go to a hospital just like you would for alcohol. Mm-hmm. You deserve the right to go to a hospital. And use there among teenagers went down. Not by a lot, but use of drugs in general, and cannabis specifically, went down a little bit. The studies in California after medicalization also showed teen use going down. And it's incredibly easy to, California's medicalization was basically a legalization for teenagers. It would make it very easy to get it, but it made it easy, it was Yeah, use usually goes down when you legalize among kids.
I also believe there was a DU study that came out that parallels that here in Colorado. That's once we made it medical, use when teens went down.
And it's very interesting because, you know, during the time and talking extensively with the opposite side, okay, and I am pro cannabis, but I am not pro smoke, drink, or do anything all day, every day. I'm just not. I never have been. But, you know, some of the comments, I have a friend that owns a bar, and she sees people on the patio and they're smoking, you know, pot. And she's like, you can't do that here. It's illegal. And they're, you know, crappy and snap at her and say, no, it's legal. Well, no, it's not. It's still not legal to smoke openly or publicly. And so, you know, whether that's right or wrong, right? We all know that alcohol is worse for you than cannabis. It's a known fact. But it's going to take a long time for people to really get over the stigma. And even I have to admit, I still have my own stigma. I really do. And so I'm just curious. And I do think there'll be a spike for nostalgia reasons, and then I think it'll drop. I also think that our tourism is going to go up amazingly because, I read an article that Utah's pretty worried because why would you go to Utah if you can go to Colorado, you know, and buy on the way up to the mountain. So, but it's very interesting. What other, like in Portugal, so all drugs got decriminalized, heroin, everything. Correct. Did they ever have a big drug problem there? Like how did that happen? That's why so what happened?
That's why they did it. I don't know the story there as well. I haven't gone to do my research there yet, but I've been reading about it for a while. And they did it because of very high levels of heroin problems. Just guys all over the street dying from overdoses and, you know, an inferior product that isn't regulated, no clean needles around. And so the main reason that they wanted to do a harm reduction model was because of their huge heroin problem. And so now, if you get caught with drugs in Portugal, you go before a tribunal of a nurse and a judge and a social worker, and they decide if you're harming their life. And if you are harming your life, they can order civil type things, fines. They can order you into treatment and things like that. But you can't go to prison for it. Just like if for alcohol, they can say you have to go to Betty Ford. For heroin, you have to go to the hospital if you're harming yourself too much. But you get caught with MDMA and you're some kid going on a 3-day bender, that's less dangerous than riding a horse. So you should be allowed to do that.
Well, you know, one day, hopefully, there will be clinics that you can go to that have cannabinoid therapy. Because, believe it or not, cannabinoids help against all other drug addiction, including nicotine and caffeine, ethanol, heroin.
Methadone. And they have methadone clinics, right? So why wouldn't you have cannabis clinics?
Yeah. If the world was a perfect place, we would having lots of LSD and cannabis work to get rid of addictions, because those are the two most powerful medicines we've found for that kind of stuff. It would be much less harm in the world if we could have the cojones to do it.
Well, there's a lot of people out there that think that more cannabis use is going to lead to more a less productive society. What do you guys think about that?
I think Bill Hicks.
No.
No, I'm dead serious. I talk to people every day that they're really afraid of that.
And it's just funny because you're talking about stoner culture. It's like we have yet to see a movie where there are stoners doing as much as Darwin and I have to do in a day.
I know.
We consume extract heavily all day, every day, as you were just saying, and we work extremely hard days, 18-hour days if we have to. We work weekends.
I know how hard you guys work. I absolutely do. That's why I'm throwing it out there,
right?
Because I don't. I can tell you right now, like I'm not even working an hour, half an hour, 2 minutes. Like I it just doesn't work that way for me. It's more of a, you know, maybe at the end of the day or on the weekend when I don't have to do anything. Like people clean. Yeah, I don't do any of that.
And we're not promoting everyone.
Of course not. Of course not.
And my personal experience too, when I first started bud and then extract, it was too overwhelming for my system. So obviously this has been built up over many years of tolerance, because I agree with you. But I've always felt kind of an energy. I just couldn't really work. It was too overwhelming. So I'm just interested because you say you usually don't get any kind of...
No, I'm not. I eat, eat some more, eat some more, eat some more. And then I go and I cry because it hurts so bad when I'm laying in bed. I'm not joking. Like, that's pretty much how it goes. And it's just not a good, it's terrible. And it's terrible that I like to drink more than I do. I mean, and I know it's worse for me and everything, but it's just I still, once I can create a product or you create a product that has high THCV and I don't eat the planet and maybe combine it with a 5-hour energy, maybe we got a drug for Jen. But besides that, it's just affects me completely opposite. And listen, I have met the hardest workers in this industry. I really have. I mean, most people in this industry work a ton, more than any other industry I've ever worked in, really. So I know that is not the truth. Unfortunately, that's the stigma that goes with it, and a lot of people do get lazy. They do.
Well, and it's if you're going to be lazy, then you're going to be lazy, and it kind of, because of stoner society and even the word stoner, from being a stone and not being able to move. Yep. That whole laziness, I think we need to separate acute users and chronic users, or naive users and non-naive users. When I was a naive user and I would smoke like you, I would wait till nighttime, weekends, similar to when you consume alcohol, because you can't be functional after you consume.
Right.
But after a while, your body does, and this goes back to Lex talking about memory loss. When I first started smoking, I couldn't keep a thought in my head. But, they have done brain scans where they've shown acute users versus chronic users, your synapses actually fire faster when a chronic user has cannabinoids in their system versus an acute user. It's almost like an overload of too much electricity, because you do have your endocannabinoid receptors, and cannabinoids are so effective in your system. So, as far as memory loss, you have to, again, separate acute from chronic, because CBD also protects against it mitigates against THC's negative effects, like short-term memory loss, paranoia, fatigue, even red eye.
Yeah, CBD is one of those molecules where you actually do want to saturate your system with it. It's almost a daily vitamin. It needs to be something that's in everybody's regimen.
And there's a great activist here in Denver, Bill Althouse, and he goes away just giving away high CBD strains out of his Mercedes that was owned by Marcos from the Philippines.
I don't know him. Do you?
Bill Althouse?
Yeah, he does tinctures?
No, he just gives away Harlequin strain CBD plants.
Okay.
I've never heard of him.
And he really believes in the power of CBD. And he said, if you are above 40 or 50 years old and you don't have 45 milligrams of CBD in your system every day, you're foolish. Mm-hmm. And he's exactly right. This is the best medicine we have for this aging baby boomer generation.
And it's not just CBD or the non-psychoactive constituents. Jen was bringing it up as well. Juicing of raw plant,
which is non-psychoactive because THC is not naturally occurring in the plant. It's THC acid.
Right. So you're getting the cannabinoids in their acid form. You're also getting the terpenoids, the flavonoids, the other elements, minus the refinement process of extracting them, essentially. So you're getting more of the raw, pure molecules.
And still, see, again, we don't want to, treat THC like it's, the redhead stepchild, because it's really not. It's it's all the cannabinoids that work together.
Absolutely.
So what you're talking about is awesome, because you can still have the THC acid, not get the psychoactive activity like a lot of these baby boomers and older generations don't want, but they do want to be healthier and better, and they don't want to take a bunch of medications, and they don't want to be in pain. So I just think it's more about educating and creating products that are more appealing, not the candies full of sugar and all of that kind of stuff. That's why juicing, I just think, is going to be gigantic. And
it's a great supplement too.
Right. Exactly. Just like protein.
Mm-hmm. And specifically with pharmaceutical drugs, CBD is shown to to stop the CYP450 enzymes, the liver enzymes that digest any other drug, or most other drugs, I should say. So if you're supplementing CBD or high CBD strains with whatever pharmaceuticals you're taking, including vitamins, you have to take less of them because your metabolism is paused essentially by CBD. So you can end up, for opiates, for example, if you're taking CBD and opiates, you can take 1/5 of the dose and still get that same effect because more of the opiates is getting through your system because CBD is kind of prepping your liver by turning off those enzymes. Conversely, you can overdose, though, on your other drugs, so you should be careful because cannabinoids are very potent. So you'd want to stepwise up slowly, essentially, if you are adding CBD.
I believe I'm going to have a guy on that was addicted to opiates and now is on cannabis treatment.
That's
Remind
awesome.
me to, because I'd like to have
Yeah.
a few people on because there's always it's the gateway drug. But as
Actually-
we all know, alcohol is the gateway to everything.
And I'll forward you and you as well, Lex, a recent article I was showing Darwin that shows it's actually inversely proportional. So the sooner you start cannabis, the less likely you are to try other things. And there's also animal studies showing that rats and mice, given the choice of all the drugs, will choose cannabis.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we'll be right back.
Cool.
iVita Wellness is committed to compassionate patient care while providing the highest quality medicine at an affordable price. At iVita Wellness, patients can get top shelf ounces for $150 every day. iVita Wellness also carries pharmaceutical grade pure CO2 oil. iVita Wellness is located in Uptown Denver on 1616 Pearl Street, open 7 days a week from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. You can reach us at 303-952-9150 or our website at www.ivitawellness.com. iVita Wellness is Denver's compassionate care center.
Tired of dispensary hopping? Trying to find quality meds? Look no further and get to know Greenworks. Our shops are stocked with over 20 strains of organically grown meds, including R4, the highest tested CBD strain in Colorado. Yes, we back up our quality with testing. While Greenworks offers only the highest quality meds, we don't believe in high prices, with eighths ranging from $20 to $40 and ounces capped at $175. With 2 centers in Denver and 1 in Glenwood Springs, we're likely closer than you think. Call 303-647-5210 to find the location nearest you.
This segment was brought to you by The Farm, a medical marijuana care center located at 2801 Iris Street in Boulder. The Farm carries premium, cannabis, edibles, and Hummingbird brand products. Visit our new cannabis lifestyle store for your local artesian glass, vaporizers, and hemp clothing. The Farm has been serving Boulder since 2009. Isn't it time you come and see what we have to offer?
I'm Gary Johnson, and you're listening to iCannabis Radio, and I want to say, talk it up, Colorado.
All righty. So we were talking about how there'll always be a top shelf consumer. I know that everyone's worried about the price of cannabis is going to drop, and it probably will. But I hope that patients understand that you get what you pay for, and unless you're a gigantic grow, which there are some that do produce great medicine, but if you're not, you get what you pay for, and people have to understand. I'm always seeing online, who has cheap wax this week? And it's like, yeah, and you're getting it full of butane because it costs for like we were talking about, the pink stuff, as I call it. It's probably very expensive to make.
Yeah, I mean, it's about like $13 to produce.
Yeah,
After
that's a lot.
Everything's done.
Right. So in order to package and produce and all of that, I mean, that's going to be a higher cost item, but I truly believe that there's always going to be a higher, consumer out there, just like with your beer. I mean, you can spend $7 on a beer, right?
Yeah. I definitely think we're going to have, just like the Colorado Beer Festival, we'll have small batch runs that people put their heart and soul into that are sold for extreme amounts of money. I know you were mentioning The Harlequin strain, I believe that goes for like 20,000 from other growers, and you're talking about someone who's just giving it away, because CBD is in high demand right now.
It is,
and for its medicinal value, as well as it's becoming a much more celebrity cannabinoid, just like THC was.
right. Well, and the Dravet kids we were talking about, so the Realm of Caring, realmofcaring.com, they donate oil, high CBD oil, to children and to basically patients that are about to die. What is the word for that? Hospice, sorry. And they are on now a waiting list, and they actually have, I believe they have 2 greenhouses now, and probably 1 full greenhouse is full of CBD strains. So that's how much, in demand. Now, I will say that I just pulled up the highest CBD flower test, 20.5 to 1.5 THC. Just pulled it off from Lightshade today. And they have mixed some Canatonics and some other strains that I can't say, and now they're calling it Lightshade CBD, and that's the highest I've seen. Incredible. So when you're starting out with flowers that have that kind of ratio, obviously you're going to have stronger oils, and you'll be able to mix oils and everything like that. But you're right. I mean, it's very expensive. Plus, it yields less than THC plants, and it's harder to grow. So all of those things cost more money. Before 3 years ago, people wanted to find the most yielding, highest THC plant they could get. Well, as people are getting educated, they now understand what it takes and how you need to flush and cure and do all this stuff that most people are not doing. I mean, we talk about it every week. So just out there, just know that you get what you pay for. You really do. And most people can't afford to sell really cheap stuff. They just can't.
And I know there's actually strains still coming from California that are going for $600 an ounce or more. I believe a Jedi 600 is one of those because of it has a specific terpene and flavonoid profile that people are looking for, not because of its cannabinoid profile.
Interesting. I did not know that. I haven't tested that, I don't think. I think I've tested a Jedi something, but I'm not sure.
It's brand new.
Brand new. Okay, yeah. Then I haven't. But I just hope that people take the time to talk to their customers and everything, and let them know that because I know that like the clinic and some other dispensaries that charge more, get flack all the time, and I just can't imagine what their budtenders go through without wanting to knock somebody out, because unless you grow or make oil or test cannabis, you don't understand how expensive it is, and you can't be in business. Your business won't survive if you don't cover your costs and cover your employees and everything like that. So I just hope people understand that. I understand everyone wants cannabis, but it's also a business. We have to stay in business, right? So it's very interesting. Did you know about cannabis testing before you started your?
Yes.
Yeah.
But it's been one of the most fascinating parts, because then you get people who are very passionate about the plant, but also
Right.
people who will not speak out without the evidence to back them up. I mean, you can hear it in scientists' voices being like, this is how I think it might go, and here's what the studies show, but let me
Right.
tell you as close to the truth as I can say currently at this point. And it's nice to have that kind of honesty, because you miss a lot of that. You'll go to, say, a normal conference somewhere, and somebody talks about the harm from cannabis, and the whole room laughs. And that's bullshit. This is still a drug. It's one of the safest drugs. I think, as I've gone through this, I think the safety profile and the harm potential of cannabis is probably most similar to coffee and tea, where we all know people who are drinking way too much of that or smoking way too much of that, and they're not dying from it, but they are harming their life. They're not getting as much out of life. They're spending too much time devoted to this drug. You should be allowed
That's
to do
what
as
I'm
much.
against.
Yeah, you should be allowed to do as much as you want. But human beings, moderation, annoyingly, is always the key to having a good life. And you should drink your coffee and smoke your pot and drink your booze in moderation.
I know, but it doesn't seem like anyone knows what moderation is. It's like
Right.
everybody is doing too much of something, right? So then at the end of the day, do you just go, well, this is better than this? I mean, is that what we do? Because I see people drinking 3, 4, 5 big gulps a day. Like, that just makes me want to cry. They're rotting their insides, rotting. And a lot of that's diet. And then diet's even worse than sugar. I mean, so, and then you look at our population, we're 30, I think the state with the highest obesity, of course, in the South is like 35% of their population is
I think
obese.
It's higher than that.
Well, that's just in the highest state.
Yeah, okay.
But then because Colorado was the least at 18%. But I mean, if you look at that and you look at I mean, everyone has something. You go to the doctor. Oh, you have ADHD. Take this. Take crystal meth. Here, take some Adderall.
And cannabis is effective for all of this stuff. ADHD, schizophrenia, epilepsy, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, and one that doesn't get talked about very much, diabetes and obesity in general.
Absolutely.
Having this in your system means you're less likely to get diabetes.
And
That's
Crohn's
incredibly
disease.
important.
What's the other one? Crohn's. And I mean, I've talked to people about stuttering. Of course, MS. Yeah. I mean, it's incredible. But then you'll get people to say that, as much as I say it's a miracle plant, it is not the cure all. And so I think people get hung up on that too. Like, oh, everyone should smoke pot all day long because it does all these things. And, that doesn't equate to that either.
Yeah, I've heard a number of people here in Colorado say, well, it can replace every pharmaceutical drug that's out there. And that's silly. But I think Dr. Todd Mercuria,
that was actually me. And I said there potential to. Because if you think about it, pharmaceutical drugs are also made from natural substances that we found, right? Almost every pharmaceutical drug is made from something that we found or synthesized, right? So if we just take out the chemical synthesis, I mean, my background is also organic chemistry. Making these molecules in a lab is not the same thing as millions of years of evolution creating this molecule.
That's why Marinol doesn't work.
And right, exactly, because it's completely different. When you say it's similar to caffeine and, did you say nicotine or just caffeine in tea?
No, just caffeine in coffee.
I would agree on the safety level, but I would disagree because it's not. Because this is the only drug molecule that mimic something so closely in our body that's needed for natural function of everything.
Well, I would say that the parallel that is as important is the opiate system.
Yes, absolutely.
And so I think it's very important that we have the synthetic versions of the morphine from the opium plant. It's good that we have heroin for pain killing, that we have stuff down to lightweight codeine for, not too bad a pain. And that's why I think the synthetic versions of THC will be important. I mean, we are good at testing single molecule stuff for efficacy. And the idea that not only THC and CBD, but all the JWH series and Spice, HU, we don't know enough about them now. Right. They might be harmful, but they could also be analogs that are helpful. Here's a 14-hour non-high that helps anxiety, and that's from this molecule.
But Marinol doesn't help. I haven't heard one person that likes Marinol, and I don't even think it's synthetic. I mean, I think it's synthetic, but I think it's because it's stripped out too. I don't think it's, again, the entourage, the symphony of all the cannabinoids, the different parts of the plant working together. I think if you strip those out, it doesn't matter. If you make a CBD pill, it is not going to be like having CBD in your plant with a little THC and terpenes. I just think, I mean, again, we'll have to do, the science, but I do not think single cannabinoids work as well as
and you also look at caffeine has killed people. Nicotine has. As far as I know, THC or anything cannabis, so I'm talking about organic THC and cannabis, has never killed anybody, period. Marinol so far has killed 4 people. Marinol has. Yeah. So again, it's the replacing, if there's a natural drug substance that can naturally replace these pharmaceutical drugs, again, we need to have a further conversation as well, because the dependence and tolerance is completely different with caffeine and nicotine even, but especially opiates and, the harder drugs. So I have to disagree that cannabinoids are essential. If you don't want to get high, that's fine. But as Darwin was saying, CBD, even if you're just taking terpenoids, these molecules are proven to be beneficial in the human body, and they're natural, and they don't create a tolerance like pharmaceuticals do. And that's why I push cannabinoids can replace most pharmaceuticals.
Interesting. I mean, I think it's fascinating. And I think I'm going to buy a juicer. As I was telling them before, I'm really on this juicer thing.
Right.
So I'm going to buy this juicer, and then hopefully somebody can supply me with some cannabis leaves.
Right.
And I'm going to start, I'm not going to ingest at all. I'm just going to juice,
awesome.
and I'm going to see how it goes. I really am, because then I won't get hungry.
And I'm
It's
interested.
THC.
I'm interested to hear your
Yeah.
experience too, because
gonna-
you're getting a bunch of cannabinoids and other constituents
Right.
without that psychoactive.
Without the
high.
psychoactive. So I'm going to figure out when I'm going to start this, and we'll do a little test on me, because I haven't used in several weeks, and so I just kind of want to see how it goes.
Well, don't be surprised though, depending on how efficient your metabolism is, that you
may
actually
get a
do
little
get a
bit.
little high.
Really? Well, right, because there's a tiny bit of THC.
Well,
in there.
and the digestive process will take some of that THCA into THC.
Okay.
So
Through
just digestion.
just your stomach
Mhm.
acids and
same,
stuff?
Same with
Interesting.
CBDA to CBD, CBCA, all that.
Do we know what the conversion rate on that is?
It's tiny, but again, that's why Darwin said depending on your
Depending
tolerance.
and how much and if my tolerance is going to be low now that I haven't used, we'll see what that looks
But
like.
conversely, you also have the natural form of most of those terpenoids, so that should help mitigation much more.
Oh, right. Okay. That makes sense.
That'll be the great thing there, because since you are juicing it and everything like that, you will have the most terpenes and flavonoids possible, since those are the most finicky of the constituents in which to
Volatile.
extract.
Well, I wish that I had enough money to go get a full, like I'm going to go get my yearly, and, she checks all my amino acids and everything. And I have a very low zinc for some reason, so I have to take zinc supplements. So I'm curious that I wish I could do a full workup, then juice.
And
But
then
I know that you can, the whites of your eyes, like all these things, and how much energy you have is going to be mainly the big thing.
Well,
So
energy metabolism, mood stabilization, those are just two of the main systems, endocrine system, digestive system, that the endocannabinoid system is kind of a master controller of. The immunity is also another one of them.
awesome,
So
because
as
I've
far-
been super sick this year, like sicker than I've ever been. So
So you definitely
Stress.
need cannabinoids.
I think I need to juice cannabinoids, but I honestly think that's why.
Whole plant extract.
Yes.
Anyway, well, thank you so much, Lex, for coming by. This was like perfect timing, and I hope you get to meet a whole bunch of cool people.
Thank you. I certainly have so far.
And if you do come back to Colorado, you should come back on, or after you release your book and everything.
Yeah. Well, I'm coming back for harvest time. You can't get to know this plant without sitting out in the mountains of Colorado with your buddies' kids and trimming weed for a week or two.
Right.
But yeah, I'll be around. I'm going back. I've been in Oakland and then here in Colorado, researching this graphic novel on cannabis, and I'm going back to Brooklyn to process it. But if anybody wants to add in their angle, I'm always down to listen. You can find what I'm up to at lexpelger.com.
All right. And then, of course, Tamar and Darwin work for Dixie Elixirs, and you can find that out at dixieelixirs.com.
And our other one's DixieBotanicals.com.
And why don't you tell me what is the latest that you guys have launched? What's the latest product?
Let's see, this is what we need Christy for, right?
I know, because you've launched so many.
Recently, it was a natural flavor for our CBD
Oh, that's
tincture
right.
line.
Because people didn't like some of the flavors.
So it's we just had cinnamon, so it's minus cinnamon.
Okay.
So it's just a natural flavor of CBD.
And that's the botanical, correct? CBD from hemp.
Yes. And we are launching vape pen oil.
Very soon.
Oh, very cool. So people can buy the oil and load it in their vape pen, or do they buy the vape pen?
Well, both, actually. Mhm.
Okay.
Both types.
Great. Well, awesome. We'll be looking for that, and you'll be looking for Tamar and myself, because she's my new co-host, and I believe we will be back on June 3rd, Monday, June 3rd. Thank you so much.